Great to have joining us now on the show a man who's really, really interesting book, very apropos, of course, as we are just into 2016, the big election year coming up. A really fascinating look at the government and maybe some of the things within the government people don't know about. It's called The Deep State, The Fall of the Constitution and the Rise of a Shadow Government. We're joined today by Mike Lofgren, and he joined us by telephone from up in the Northern Virginia area, right outside Washington, D.C. Mike, good to talk with you. How are you today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Had a chance to read through the book. I've always been kind of a political junkie myself. I've always heard kind of, there's a shadow government or other things going on, and you really kind of shed some light on that. I guess we've all kind of thought, there's other things going on, no matter who's in office, controlling the situation, and that's true, isn't it?
Yes. You would be surprised that despite fighting over things like abortion or gay marriage and all this, in things where money really matters, the national security state, because there's so much money going in and out of there, and things like Wall Street and financial regulation, the parties are remarkably similar. And someone like Barack Obama will have many of the same people running these operations as George Bush did. Think of Bob Gates, the Secretary of Defense. Mm-hmm. He presided over the surge in Iraq in 2007 for George W. Bush. Obama kept him on. He presided over the surge in Afghanistan. In fact, he engineered the thing somewhat against Obama's wishes. Obama wanted more options other than just escalate, because he didn't see how it was going to solve things in the long term. But escalation is what we got. They hire the same types of people, very Wall Street friendly, to become Secretary of the Treasury. Hank Paulson and Tim Geithner, pretty much birds of a feather.
Right. Yeah, you go back, and I kind of go back to, remembering a bit about the Nixon administration, a little bit about before that, not too much, I was a little kid, but yeah, you go through all the staffs that the different presidents have had, and you do tend to see a lot of the same names, and even when the Democrats came in under Carter, I guess there were some, Republicans involved in his cabinet, and vice versa when Barack Obama and then Jimmy Carter came in, so you get a lot of the same people in and out, right? Or the same type of philosophies.
Right, and the thing is, it's not just the government that's a part of this. There's also Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, and so forth. And there's this big revolving door where these guys are in industry, and then they serve in the Pentagon, and then they go back, or Bill Clinton's Secretary of the Treasury, Robert Rubin, came from Goldman Sachs,
right,
presided over the Treasury at the time. The Glass-Steagall Act was repealed, which had separated investment banking and commercial banking and other types of financial operations. So the repeal allowed mergers. So then he became CEO of Citigroup when it merged with Travelers after he left the Treasury. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of self-dealing that goes on here.
Yeah, I mentioned before we started here, election year this year, and people have their own ideologies. Nothing wrong with that. But in your book, from reading through it, I guess it really doesn't matter a heck of a lot on certain issues, like you mentioned, when it comes to the military and even the financial policy. Does it really make much difference who you vote for?
Well, Obama campaigned on closing Guantanamo,
right,
and I think he has a good case to make because our own domestic courts do a better, more efficient job of trying these people, giving them a fair trial, and then sentencing them, as we did to Zacarias Moussaoui, who was involved in the 9/11 plot. And yet, 7 years later, it's still open. So not a lot changes.
The title of the book is called The Deep State. I've always heard the term of shadow government, but how prevalent is it? Does the president have any control over it, or is it vice versa?
Well, he controls it, but it's kind of symbiosis. They also have plenty of control and influence. For some reason, Obama thinks John Brennan is doing a heck of a job at the CIA. Well, he was a figure in a senior position at the CIA under Bush. And he was actually Obama's advisor, foreign policy advisor, during the campaign. So you got different people at the helm, but down in the boiler room, it's pretty much the same people.
Yeah, Donald Trump has been successful, at least so far, getting a good constituent base by saying, I want to clean up government. They're not doing anything. Let's say he gets in. Is a guy like that that's been outside, in a sense, at least the political arena, going to be able to even change it, the deep state? Or is it just talk?
Yeah, that is a question beyond my ability to answer. I do say, however, that between him and Bernie Sanders, they may be totally different ideologically, but they both strike a chord in the public that they're not doing business the same way. Trump, you can't buy him off because he doesn't need their money. He doesn't need the money of rich donors. And Bernie Sanders has a totally different business model based on small donations from huge numbers of people, not millionaires writing a check. So 6 months ago, I wouldn't have foreseen this. Apparently people can't identify the deep state and broken government and necessarily know all the details, and sometimes their anger is misdirected, but they do sense that something's wrong, and candidacies like that, for good or ill, strike a chord with a lot of people.
Yeah, well, Reagan almost had that as well back after Carter. A similar type of, struck a chord with people saying nothing was happening, or the malaise, I guess is the term he used back then. So history repeats itself a little bit, although Trump's doing it a little bit differently, right?
Trump's doing a lot differently. He's scaring the daylights out of the Republican establishment.
That's true, yeah.
As Sanders is for the Democratic establishment.
Right. Now, you've been part of the political scene, I guess, 28 years working in Congress, different aspects in there. So you've seen this firsthand, and a lot of people are upset that Congress can't seem to get anything done. I guess their approval rating is almost in single digits. Is anything going to be done, do you think, whoever gets in, to make things at least more palatable for the public? They think,
it has to come from the bottom up.
Yeah.
It has to come from the bottom up of individual people informing themselves of what's going on overseas, what are the components of the federal budget, where do my tax dollars go? It's a complex story, but ultimately I would think it would be more interesting than what the Kardashians are doing.
That's right. Well, it's a fascinating book. We've only had a couple of minutes to kind of touch on it for the audience, but I do recommend people check it out. It's called The Deep State, The Fall of the Constitution and the Rise of a Shadow Government. We're talking with a man who knows what he's talking about. Mike Lofgren has spent a lot of time in Congress and up in D.C. And Mike, do you have a website you want to direct people to? They can get more information on the book.
Sure. www.mikelofgren.net.
That's Lofgren to spell the last name. And
that is correct.
Mike, pleasure talking to you. Thanks for taking the time, and hopefully we can have you on again later in the year. As it's going to heat up a lot in the next few months, and a lot to talk about. But thanks for joining us.
You bet.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.